You crave routine. You crave chaos. You want every hour planned, and you want every hour to surprise you. Some days your mind moves like a machine built for focus. Other days, it will not move at all. You've probably assumed your brain is simply inconsistent, but it may not be one system failing. It may be two systems, each trying to protect you in a different way. Psychologist Russell Barkley spent years studying what actually goes wrong in ADHD brains, and his answer was not laziness or lack of willpower. It was executive function, the brain's ability to manage time, switch tasks, and resist distraction. When that system runs low, the mind reaches for stimulation the way a tired body reaches for sugar. Impulsivity, restlessness, jumping between ideas. Barkley's research frames these as a chronically underaroused nervous system generating its own stimulation to reach a workable baseline, the same way someone might tap a foot to stay awake through a dull meeting. Now place a second system on top of that one. Autistic cognition, as researchers including Baron-Cohen have described, often runs on predictability. The autistic brain frequently processes the world through detailed pattern recognition, and unpredictability is not just annoying, it is genuinely costly to process. So while one part of you is starving for novelty, another part is starving for structure. Same mind, two competing appetites. And it gets stranger from here. Because these two systems do not just sit side by side quietly, they interrupt each other. The ADHD half of the brain sabotages the very routines the autistic half depends on. The autistic half resists the spontaneity the ADHD half is craving. You are not choosing between order and disorder. You are hosting an argument between two regulation strategies, and both of them are trying to reduce the same underlying threat, uncertainty. This is where masking enters. Writer and psychologist Devon Price has described how neurodivergent people often learn to perform whichever version of themselves a given room seems to expect. Suppressing the traits that would draw attention, for someone carrying both wiring patterns, the performance runs in two directions at once, hiding the restlessness at work by forcing stillness, then hiding the rigidity at home by forcing spontaneity for people who expect it. Neither performance is sustainable for long because each one drains the exact resource the other trait needs to function. Push down the fidgeting, and there is less capacity left to tolerate the sudden change of plans. Push down the need for sameness, and there is less capacity left to sit still. You are not managing one identity, you are running a constant, largely invisible negotiation between two systems, often without ever consciously deciding to. Here is the genuine insight underneath all of this. The contradiction was never really about you being broken in two directions. Both drives, the pull toward novelty and the pull toward sameness, are the same underlying goal, wearing different strategies. One tries to create safety by adding stimulation. The other tries to create safety by removing unpredictability. You have not been given two personalities. You've been given two dialects of the same need for control over an overwhelming world. Philosophy has actually anticipated this idea for centuries, long before anyone used the word neurodivergent. The philosopher David Hume argued that the self is not one fixed, unified thing sitting behind your thoughts. Instead, he described it as a bundle, a shifting collection of perceptions, impulses, and drives that never fully settle into one consistent shape. Hume wasn't describing a flaw, he was describing what a mind actually is. If Hume is right, then the AuDHD experience is not a broken version of a unified self, it is simply a louder, more visible version of what every mind already is, a bundle of competing processes, occasionally pulling in different directions, none of them the true you, and all of them the true you at once. That reframe changes what you do next. If you stop expecting yourself to be one consistent person, you can stop treating every contradictory urge as proof that something is failing. Start by tracking energy instead of enforcing consistency. Instead of building one rigid routine and blaming yourself when it collapses by Wednesday, build a small menu of options for each part of your day. 2 or 3 acceptable ways to spend the next hour, rather than one mandatory way. This gives the novelty-seeking half a genuine choice, while still giving the structure-seeking half real boundaries to work inside. A menu is not chaos, and it is not a fixed schedule. It is a compromise both systems can actually tolerate. Second, build in scheduled unpredictability rather than accidental unpredictability. Autistic-leaning routines often collapse not because change happened, but because change happened without warning. Deciding in advance that Thursday afternoon is open gives the ADHD half its novelty on a schedule the autistic half can actually prepare for. You are not eliminating the contradiction, you are giving both sides a seat at the table before the argument starts, instead of after it has already derailed your day. Third, notice which half is currently exhausted before you assign blame. If you have just spent hours forcing stillness, do not expect the same hour to also deliver flexibility. Ask which system is depleted, then meet that specific need rather than pushing harder against it. You crave routine, you crave chaos. But maybe those were never two people arguing over one mind. Maybe they were always the same mind, speaking two dialects of the same request. Help me feel safe in a world that rarely slows down enough to explain itself.